It's the Harris Football Podcast with your host, Christopher Harris.
Welcome! Hey, everybody, welcome in. My name is Chris. This is a show about secret civilizations. Please follow along. Hello there, everybody. How in the world are you? Thank you so much for listening today. It's been so fun to be back, to know that a lot of you are listening. Got several emails from folks. Suddenly my email inbox picks up, which is great. What a blast. It's early, no question about it. We try and pace ourselves here in July because there really is no NFL news in July, but it's a good way to ease ourselves into getting ready for those drafts. We're doing 2 shows per week here on the main show in July. Those drop Tuesdays and Fridays. The Yacht Club also gets 1 episode per week in July. Me and Andy Behrens dropping episodes on Monday. I thank you for making all this possible. And thanks to so many of you for the reminder from this past Tuesday's episode in which I shamefully could not extemporaneously come up with the correct player whose nickname was Turkey Mayo. What the heck was my problem?
Stands upright on a football run. Tevin Coleman is a Turkey Mayo.
He sure was. Obviously, the answer was Tevin Coleman. I could practically feel the psychic blast coming from 1,000 people shouting at their phones or their laptops. Harris, you knucklehead, Tevin Coleman is the Turkey Mayo. But then again, if I hadn't messed that up, we wouldn't have gotten to play that old favorite sound drop from like 2019. So who's the idiot now? Yes, okay, granted, I am the idiot now. All right, so the Almanac is truly getting closer. We are rounding the home stretch. I am rounding the home stretch. I'm very ready for you to be reading this thing. Still got a few weeks to go, but I've been working on it every day since the beginning of May. It is a monster. The profiles are written. A couple of exceptions. I'm waiting to write, who is it? Stephon Diggs I haven't written. Come on, sign with somebody, and then I don't have to write a generic profile. I haven't written Alvin Kamara yet. I just think eventually the Saints are going to get rid of him, but those are going to be the last 2 probably that I write. Anyway, very close with the artwork. The layout is mostly done. I have to finish off the last of the ranks, the appendices. A few weeks, the Almanac will be delivered to your hot little hands as a PDF. I keep forgetting the count. How many profiles have I written? I think it's, when I rate those 2, it'll be 233 profiles. Film grades for everybody except the rookies. Lots of film watching, lots of snark. Not only do you get the Almanac delivered August 3rd, you also get an update at the end of August where I redline everything that changes over training camp. Your fantasy print magazine could never. It's $22. I think on the website I say it's 240 pages. That is a lie. That is like 300 pages by now. The profiles get more in-depth every year. And you can pre-order it right now at harrisfootball.com. Let's read you a profile. We're doing the AFC South teams on the show today. So how about Wan'Dale Robinson's profile? He's moved to the Titans, still only 25 years old. For film grades, speed, he gets a B. Elusiveness, a B+. End zone, a C. Those are all carryover grades. Didn't see major changes in those. But hands, I upgraded to a B. It's marked on there so you can see all the film grade changes from the previous year. Robinson got an upgrade to a B. Had not a great hands year 2 years ago, but last year much better. Situation grade, he gets a B-. His profile goes like this. We're about to list a bunch of undersized slot guys. They're all good players, but probably better for real-life NFL action than for fantasy. Their limbs and ADOTs are teeny. Of that group, you can give me Wan'Dale first, mainly because when circumstances conspired to give him a shot at a high-volume job last year, he took advantage. He was a short king in more ways than one. Robinson is a hard-working wiggly worm. If you spend a while watching his routes, which I just did to write this profile, you'll realize what a hard time defenders have figuring out which way he's about to break. Plus, he's sturdy for a little guy. Week 6 against the Eagles, In a typical Jackson Dart runaround, Robinson waved his hands on the sidelines and got a short throw, but was dead to rights. Rookie safety Andrew Mabuka wrapped Wan'Dale up, and the play should have been over, but Robinson stood his ground, let Mabuka swing all the way around him and lose his grip, and he was off to the races for a touchdown. He's fearless. Getting thumped by the Chiefs week 3 at the end of the game, Robinson ran a post from the slot into 3 defenders, and Russell Wilson threw him a hospital ball, but Wan'Dale snagged it and got drilled. He's gutty. Week 7 against the Broncos on a 3rd and 12. Robinson caught a 1-yard screen and wove through half the defense and stuck his nose in to eke over the first down line. He's everything you want in a football player, except big enough. We talk about how little Amon-Ra St. Brown is. He's 4 inches taller and 17 pounds heavier. Wan'Dale is little. When people used to tell you Cole Beasley was really about to become a fantasy factor, that's what this is like. In fact, Robinson's 1,014 receiving yards from 2025 is the highest total of any receiver his height and weight this millennium. Beasley once did 967. And of course, that required a Malik Neighbors injury and also required the Giants to otherwise be absolute ass. But yeah, the Titans of 26 might be absolute ass too. New Tennessee offensive coordinator Brian Daboll surely put in a special request to spend the $38 million guaranteed to get Robinson in free agency, since he used to coach Wan'Dale in New York. And for a few weeks there, folks were doing some serious dot connecting and deciding that Robinson was on his way to becoming a volume wide receiver 2 for fantasy. But, of course, then the Titans drafted Carnell Tate, number 4 overall, and that quieted down. Tennessee also still has Alec Iomanner and Chimere Dike, and for now, Calvin Ridley. But the one guy in that room I'm absolutely certain is a baller is Wan'Dale. It'll probably only add up to 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, but I don't mind using a bench spot just in case I'm wrong. So that's the end of the profile. But then what a treat! As the number 48 Standard League rating wide receiver, we also get a Cousin Josh Says in the Almanac about Wan'Dale, because Cousin Josh weighs in on like somewhere between 20 and 30 players throughout the Almanac. And about Robinson, he says, I can't do the voice, I'm just going to have to read it myself. As a mature adult, I don't usually mess around with PPR guys, so I'm not here to scream from the rooftops that everybody needs to draft Wan'Dale Robinson. But riddle me this, is he really that different from, say, Parker Washington? I'll go even further. Is he really even that different from Ladd McConkey? I mean, the answer is probably yes, but you have to admit you're not positive. As a position, wide receiver is super flat, and you can find pretty good solutions pretty far down the draft board. That is what Cousin Josh says. You can, in fact, as I've mentioned, pre-order right now at harrisfootball.com. All right, so something else I've, of course, been mentioning, Cumulative Press, huge, massive publishing concern, multinational corporation, let's face it. Where do Cumulative Press's tentacles not reach in the world economy? I'm proud to say that they are publishing my new novel, Pound Foolish. It's about football, and it's a serial killer mystery. It'll be coming out 9/1, September 1st. Pretty soon, I'll have a way for you to pre-order that as well. But this past Tuesday, I mentioned on the show, hey, if you have any place in sports media you think would be fun to have them interview me, let me know. I think I just overpitched it. I made it sound more complicated, or like I needed you to have some expertise more than I do. The reason I'm saying this is because only like a half dozen people, I love you, thank you so much for writing me, but like a half dozen people wrote me. Anything else, I say, hey, email me. I get a lot of emails. So I just want to say, you don't have to be like a book expert, or that's what I'm asking. I'm not asking like, hey, how do I market my book? I'm not asking you that. If you have a favorite sports podcast or really anything that's sports related or football related, you think it would be cool for them to interview me in August, interview me about football. Let me know, because I'm just like looking to spread out further. And then, I'm going to sneak in a little uppercut about the book, but it won't mostly be just about sports. So if you just have something you listen to or watch or whatever that you love, that you say, oh, it'd be funny if Chris was on that. Hey, Harris at harrisfootball.com. I need your suggestions because I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I do appreciate it.
Today's kickoff.
Okay, on today's show, our division by division previews of NFL training camps does, in fact, continue. With the AFC South, we'll talk about what specific stuff we should be looking for and the specific stuff we should not be looking for in August for the Jaguars, Texans, Colts, and Titans. To help me sort through it and to probably get yelled at just a little bit, only because he's great and I love having him on, it'll be Dave Kluge from footballguys.com. I think it'll be really fun. I thank you again so much for listening today. We are sponsored again by AG1. That's the sound of my empty bottle. I've already drunk down my AG1 for today. It's an easy daily habit. I put the powder in the water, drink it on an empty stomach. It's just great. 1 scoop, 8 ounces of water. I've replaced my multivitamin. Plus, there's a prebiotic and a probiotic built right in. My gut health is better. And I've said this before. I go to the gym most days. It makes a real difference in how I feel working out. My energy levels are just obviously better with AG1. It's been more than 3 years. I'm a happy customer. I really do recommend starting off your day with AG1. Just give it a try. Get that tummy feeling better. Fill in your nutritional gaps. This is science. If you go to drinkag1.com/Harris, you'll get 7 free AG1 travel packs with your subscription order. A simple way to make sure your nutrition is covered for the day, improve your gut health, get that energy level where you need it to be. I'm a believer. drinkag1.com/Harris.
Today's guest.
Waking up on the yard, I hear the possum cry. I'm so excited for Dave Kluge of the Football Guys. Never the last pick of all my draft picks. He's lining up his ranks so they're all cleverly crafted. One set of ranks will do.
I mean, of course, ranks of integrity from one Dave Kluge. You can find him all over social media. Just look him up, Dave Kluge, Kluge. And please check out all of his work, along with many of our other friends, at footballguys.com. What a pleasure to have you, my friend. Happy July.
Happy July. Yeah, this is the time of year where absolutely nothing is happening, so people take any little bit of information and just run wild with it. I am just kind of waiting for training camps to open, when we actually get real news that we should react to.
There you go. Now, and many of those news, we shouldn't react to those either, and that's going to be, as you know, the theme of today's show, in which, once again, you have received the dreaded email of doom, which has cautioned you with bold and underline to never do the thing that you're not supposed to do, which is, we're previewing training camps for these 4 teams of the AFC South. So the idea is, what are we willing to take the bait on if we get stories that push us in one direction or another, and what should the listeners very much just tune out? And to be honest, what I do, based on these 8 shows that we do in July, I assemble a list of all the players the guests say, no, this is someone I actually am interested to hear all those beat reports about. And then that's it. Then that's kind of the list. And beyond that, I try, unless it's an injury, I just try not to pay attention at all, because there's just so many rat holes you could wind up going down because some beat reporter felt like, he was Hemingway that day.
Exactly. And I'm glad that I would have loved to do the NFC North, but I'm sure that there are other people doing the NFC North. I think outside of the NFC North, the AFC South is one of the most fun divisions to talk about. There's so much change in this division. You've got a lot of rising teams. You've got young players. You've got ambiguous backfields and ambiguous wide receiver rooms. So I'm thrilled that we get to talk AFC South, because I think this is just such a fun division to discuss.
All right, well, along those lines, let's dig right in. We'll start with the division champion. Didn't feel like they were division champions by the end of the year, but they were. The Jaguars of Jacksonville. We'll talk about their backfield because it has probably the biggest departure in this division. Travis Etienne leaves the Jags, goes to New Orleans. And, it's going to be very difficult for me to stand up here on my high horse and say, no, you may not pay any attention at all to what people are saying about practices and formations and who's playing where in the Jags backfield, because it's all new with the main guy gone. So clearly this is one we're going to be tracking. But I guess when it's a situation like this, and you don't really know, neither of us really knows what the news is going to be. It could be very generic. The Liam Cohen just doesn't tip his hand at all, and we just wind up not getting anything to move on. But there could be some real things or some speculation or whatever. How do you even begin to kind of like philosophically take in what you're going to hear about Jacksonville's backfield over that month?
Well, I think Sigmund Bloom talks about all the time, the drum beats out of camp. And if you are getting a steady drum beat where there is a unified front of beat reporters and coaches and front office individuals all saying, like, Tuten is the guy, I'd be foolish to ignore it. But I don't think that we're going to get that because these guys all have such different skill sets when you look at what Tuten does and what Chris Rodriguez does and what LaQuinn Allen does. And if you look at Liam Cohen's history, he is A-okay, just kind of leaning on this hot hand approach. Last year, I think it was a little bit different.
So let me, I don't want to get into it. I want to talk about what to pay attention to, okay? So Sig says the drum beat. I don't know what that means. That's to 50,000 feet. How do I know when I've heard a drum beat? If I'm listening to this show right now, how will I know when it's kind of shifted over from a bunch of idle chatter into an actual drum beat?
And I think that's what I said, the unified front, where you have multiple beat reporters, you've got coach speak, and then if James Gladstone is coming out as well, like if you've got people in the front office, the coaching staff, and the beat all saying one thing, that's when I pay attention to it, but we don't usually get that. We usually have a lot of beat reporters giving their opinions.
Again, I don't want your answer. That's what I'm saying. I don't want your answer. I'm just going to say that I pay attention to a lot of NFL media, so do you. It's our job. Mm-hmm. I don't really know when I'm hearing a drum beat. I don't really know when I'm hearing something that I can believe, all right, this is definitely, somebody is definitely telling me Tuten is 100. Like, yes, of course.
Puka Nakua's rookie season, I think that's a perfect example of a drumbeat where you heard everybody, Sean McVay, Jordan Rodriguez, every single beat reporter there was saying this guy Puka Nacua is unbelievable. And it wasn't a one-off. It wasn't a social media highlight. It was just repetitive every single day from every single beat reporter. And if we can get something like that, where like Puka Nacua, by the time that season kicked off, everybody knew who Puka Nacua was going into week one. That's something that could get me on a Bhayshul Tuten. But without something like that, I'm just going to bet on Chris Rodriguez because I think he's the best of the bunch.
I don't know. We that's interesting, and I might agree with you to some degree. Andy and I did a Tuten film review on the Yacht Club during this winter, and we went in with an open mind, and we did come out like, why does that guy keep running into people? It was a little bit of like, you could see a lot of raw materials, but does he have like uniform blindness? Can he not understand which players are not the field? That guy's not shaped like the field, and he runs right into him. So it's a good point. And I think probably what you're saying is Rodriguez at his price versus Tuten at his price.
Yeah, which I expect Rodriguez is going to be significantly cheaper, but I think my review on Tuten was very similar, and I think that there's a major blind spot among fantasy drafters, the speed scores, and Tuten can run fast. He can run really fast, but Chris Rodriguez does all the things that don't show up on speed scores. He breaks tackles, accelerates into contact, keeps offenses on schedule, all of that sort of stuff that matters. So this, in these ambiguous situations where we aren't getting a clear answer from the beat, I'm going to bet on the talent, and I think that Chris Rodriguez is the most talented back here.
I don't even know if I'll go that far because I like Rodriguez fine, but he is very limited. I mean, it's like if Tyler Algier had no long speed,
Right.
But the point being, they're not going to cost the same. I can't imagine a scenario where we get so much noise in Jags training camp that it gets to the point that people start going, you know what? Let's elevate Rodriguez almost to where Tuten's getting drafted. Like, that's just simply not going to happen because, like you said, people still remember his combine. People still remember the relative athletic score, whatever. And so I'll just say it's hard for me to quantify how much or less talented Tuten is than Rodriguez. They probably do different things well, but given the price difference, the talent gap is just not reflective of. Even if you want to conclude, to your point, that Tuten might be a little better in some ways than Rodriguez, it's just the price gap is not going to account for the difference.
Right, and that you're asking like what can change my opinion. It would need to be just like a unbelievable, and I can't think of a better
wave.
word than a drum
Yeah.
beat, but it would just have to be like everybody in Jacksonville screaming that Bhayshul Tuten is the guy, and him like not coming off the field with the ones and all that sort of stuff. But I don't anticipate that to happen, because that sort of stuff in these ambiguous situations only happens maybe once to one team every handful of years.
Yeah. How about, do you ever believe goal line nonsense? I'll just preface by saying I kind of don't.
No, I really don't either.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. And I think, like, if you had to bet, it's probably Chris Rodriguez, the guy who breaks tackles and does all that sort of stuff. So I think that we're going to see everybody kind of speculating. Like, Quinn Allen's going to get the pass down work, and Chris Rodriguez is going to get the goal line work. But I'm just going to bet on the talent. Again, I've said that 3 times now, but that's really what it comes down to. I think Chris Rodriguez is a darn good player, and if you look at some of the advanced analytics as well, it shows up on film. It shows up in the advanced analytics. This guy was top 5 in broken tackle rate, in success rate, and in there was one other one that I'm forgetting, but I mean, this guy like had a great analytical profile last year, and he looked good on film, and he's got that connection from college with Liam Cohen. So I'm buying into Chris Rodriguez being a lot more involved than people expect, unless the beat tells me I'm wrong and Tuten does run away with the job.
Right. Yeah, I obviously don't believe in those analytics and say that, broken tackles are often because you're slow as molasses and strong, So, but the film is good. Film is good. And when everybody wanted JCM to be the main guy for the Commanders, a coaching staff that was swimming and trying to rescue its own life definitely changed over to Rodriguez in the second half of last year.
Which I don't understand how, because JCM, his speed score was so good coming out of the combine.
So let's talk about those receivers in Jacksonville. And, if we don't think we're going to get a lot of clarity out of the Jags when it comes to the backfield, oh boy. This is probably a 3 receiver set type offense, and there were multiple iterations of that receiving crew over the course of last year. One pre-Brian Thomas injury, but probably even before that, one like those first couple of games where they were trying to make Brian Thomas into an all-field weapon, a Nico Collins he could play anywhere, and at some point they were like, oh my God, no, he can't. He's terrified to go over the middle. He does, we need to ride him on the rail on the sideline. But maybe all that was then exacerbated by injury. And all that is basically to say Brian Thomas is probably the key guy to monitor news on if you're going to monitor anybody. But I'm hard-pressed to come up with a lot of concrete things that I would 100% believe.
You know what I'm going to be keeping an eye on when it comes to these wide receivers? And bear with me for a second here. Sure. I want to see how much Travis Hunter is practicing with the offense, because I think that really changes the complexity of all this. I think if Travis Hunter, we're getting some reports. We haven't gotten a lot from the beat, but we've gotten a lot of national reporters speculating that he's going to be primarily on defense this year. And if you look, they didn't draft a cornerback, and that was a position of need for them. So I think that we probably do see that happen. But if in training camp we see him splitting time and we see him more with the offense than we expect right now, then I think that really mucks things up for this wide receiver room, because we can work with a 3-person wide receiver room. We kind of know who's going to be on 2 wide receiver sets. We know who the slot receiver is going to be. But if Travis Hunter is that X factor who's playing 50-60% of the snaps, then it really throws things for a loop. So I think that's what I'm going to be paying most attention to. And if Travis Hunter is involved more than we expect with the offense, then I think everybody can just come up short of their ADP. So I think that's probably what I'm going to be paying closest attention to. Watching all of the Jaguars practices, reading beat reports. How often is Travis Hunter out there with the wide receivers?
All right. So assuming not much, which you're right, that's the assumption now, but definitely could change. In my master list of players to be checking in on, I just wrote down Travis Hunter because that was your first instinct. If we do get the more expected thing, which is, all the indication seems to be at this point that he's going to be more corner at that point, even though, again, I kind of have a good feeling that Parker Washington kind of a little baller, and we all know Jakobi Meyers kind of a baller. Brian Thomas couldn't possibly have come across less of a baller if he had, I don't know what, if he had forgotten his uniform. I don't know what. He did not play like a baller last year, but you can't really prove that you are in August.
Right. And we're already getting that Brian Thomas, he's healthy, he's in the best shape of his life, he's ready for a bigger role. And of course, like, they're incentivized to say that. He's a first-round pick who flashed as a rookie, and they want to get him back on track. They want to, help build up his ego, whatever, to help him play a little bit better. But when I look at this, and maybe I'm naive in thinking this, but to me it seems like these receivers kind of have their role. Like Meyers and Brian Thomas Jr. were both out wide on over 70% of their snaps last year. Parker Washington was kind of glued to the slot, and we know that slot receiver in a Liam Cohen offense can be very productive. So I don't know, like, unless they say that, like, Brian Thomas Jr. is transferring to a slot receiver, but, like, I don't think that's going to happen. You see three very different skill sets here. I think for me, it really just comes down to Travis Hunter, because if Travis Hunter is playing primarily on defense, I think that I have a pretty good expectation of what to expect from these three receivers.
A quick break to say we're sponsored this season once again by Z-Biotics. If you drink alcohol, listen up, because Z-Biotics is incredible. I never have alcohol anymore without drinking Z-Biotics first. It is science. It is pretty incredible. Pre-alcohol from Z-Biotics is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic, invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. When we drink alcohol, it gets converted in the gut to a toxic byproduct. It's this byproduct and not dehydration that's to blame for rough mornings after drinking. Pre-alcohol gets into your gut, it produces an enzyme that breaks this byproduct down before it gets downstream from your tummy. Make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Enjoy responsibly. And I'll tell you, there's a bunch of mornings where I thought I should have probably felt worse than I did, and I was very, very grateful for Z-Biotics. We all have fantasy drafts next month. This is an incredible idea for that. Try it first. They have a happiness guarantee. If you're not satisfied, they will refund you, no questions asked. Go to zbiotics.com/Harris, and if you use the code Harris, that's 15% off. Seriously, give it a try. I can't believe how well it works. zbiotics.com/Harris. Use that code Harris. Okay, we're back with Dave Kluge Jr., and we're going to talk about some more more teams. You know how I love the Brian Thomas Jr.
Yep.
Let's talk Texans. I think I'll put it this way: when it comes to the Texans receiver room, which is very interesting, especially because I came out of the film review pretty positive on Jayden Higgins. He didn't get to do a ton, but maybe a little more as the season went along. I would love to be more excited about him, but boy, CJ Stroud and the offensive line were rough, and so it goes, how many receivers beyond Nico Collins are they really going to support? I'm trying to imagine Texans storylines that could get clever wags, saying, I need to react. And all I could really come up with was, what if Tank Dell, I've been told that Tank Dell is very much the alpha in that room. They all consider him the leader of that room, and therefore the beat reporters will all be very favorably inclined toward him, so any sign of progress could get sort of, exaggerated or whatever. I don't think that winds up in Tank Dell being that much momentum to get drafted, but it could suppress everybody else. Would that move the needle for you at all? I mean, frankly, if the answer is no news about Texans receivers is really going to do anything to my ranks, then that's fine too.
Well, I don't think it's so much news as it's going to be what my eyes tell me when I see Tank Dell out there in practice and in the preseason, because right now, like, I'm not factoring Tank Dell in. Like, that was a brutal knee injury, and he still wasn't 100% at OTAs. Like, he was still kind of watching from the sidelines and doing some workouts here. So I think the only thing that would really change my expectation right now on this wide receiver room, where I expect it to be Nico Collins being the guy, and Jayden Higgins, I'm with you. I think that he looked good in the limited opportunities last year. If Tank Dell shows up and we see him in preseason and we say, wow, that looks just like Tank Dell before he got hurt, then I'm going to have to change my expectations a little bit. But as it stands right now, I think that it's going to be Nico Collins and Jayden Higgins, and I'm trying not to factor Tank Dell in until he gives me reason to. Sure.
I mean, that's what everybody's doing. I understand. I'm saying, is it possible that positive news on Dell, I don't think anybody really suspects that would get him drafted in fantasy leagues, that Dell himself, but could it change people's opinions on Higgins to our benefit?
I don't think it would change values of the other receivers too much, because I think people are always going to have their doubts on Dell. So he might kind of creep up into like one of those like late round flyers.
I'm not talking about Dell. I'm talking about, could he make Higgins go lower?
I don't think so. I really don't. I think that Higgins is going to kind of stay where he's at in drafts because this is also a team, too. Like, they play out of 11 personnel a lot. Like we saw last year, a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So I think even if Tank Dell does come back and he's healthy, that's good for him. But I don't think that it comes at the expense of the other wide receivers just because there's so many 3 wide receiver sets.
We got lots to talk about. If the answer is no, the answer is no, and that's good. I think your instinct is to want to tell people what's going to happen 4 months from now. And my point is that we don't know what's going to happen 4 months from now. So if the listener hears from us that the Texans receivers are really not worth paying attention to, don't get hoodwinked by anything, just draft as you would normally draft them, I think that's useful advice. And we don't need to go any further. I wonder if you feel the same way about the backfield. Is it possible that Woody Marks turns into enough of an impediment on David Montgomery that everybody gets annoyed? Absolutely. Definitely possible. Are the Texans going to tell us that? What do you think?
No, I don't think they will. And I think that there might be some beat reporters out there that are trying to push Woody Marks up draft boards for whatever reason. Maybe no, I am just 100% in on David Montgomery being the 3-down back here, just like they wanted Nick Chubb to be last year and just like they wanted Joe Mixon to be before his wheels fell off. So I don't think Woody Marks is that good of a running back. There's nobody in the Texans beat that can convince me otherwise.
I mean, that's a take. I don't know if I agree with the take, but I agree that the main thing that we want people to take out of this conversation, that the backfield the key to the backfield will probably not be unlocked by people watching an exhibition game or, watching 2-a-days when they're not hitting each other or whatever. I agree. There's not that much to pay attention to. Maybe I think Marks is a little bit better than you, and maybe I think Marks could play on some 3rd downs, and I'm sure that's reflected in our respective ranks. But neither one of us can prove that we're right or we're wrong until we get to week 1. The larger point being, agreed. What incentive does anybody in Houston have to tell us the truth about
but I think
how
there
they're going to
is
deploy
incentive, I think, for fantasy drafters to hold on to any hope. I mean, we already saw this. Aaron Wilson just wrote an article, and there was one sentence at the end of that article saying Woody Marks could be involved as a pass catcher, and I saw that making the rounds on Twitter and Blue Sky and everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I think any bit of positive news about Woody Marks, people are going to hold on to, and it's going to push him up draft boards. But I am just of the belief that David Montgomery is just far and away the better running back here.
Okay, again, I don't agree necessarily. I agree Montgomery's probably better, but not at some things. Woody Marks is clearly better at some things. Between the tackles, David Montgomery definitely better. I'm not saying I'm right and you're wrong or anything like that, but I think your point is still good, which is if the listener is prepared to look at whatever Montgomery's ADP winds up being in mid-August and feel like, ooh, that's a good bargain, then don't get fooled by what you're talking about when somebody just like makes some offhanded comment about Woody Marks and he suddenly gets some helium. Like don't lose your don't hold your water on David Montgomery and don't give up on the cause because that starts making the rounds. Mm-hmm. Okay, Colts. I guess Daniel Jones we're going to be paying attention to for sure. I mean his health basically feels like it would be the main. Well, I can ask it as a question. Does Daniel Jones being available to play at something like the level of last year hold the key to any skill weapon in Indianapolis you might be interested in? Or can you see your way through to feeling the same way about them if it's a Riley Leonard, Anthony Richardson type situation?
Oh, I think this entire offense is kind of dependent on Daniel Jones being healthy. We saw it was just like one of the best offenses in the league last year and then one of the worst offenses in the league without him. Agreed. So, I mean, I think looking at everybody, like even as much as I hate to say it, Jonathan Taylor is awesome, but Jonathan Taylor was an RB3 without Daniel Jones last year, and he was the top scoring running back with him. So I'm going to be paying very, very close attention to this. Early reports is that he should be ready for the start of training camp, and that's what I'm going to be watching. But like if training camp opens up and they say, hey, he's not quite there yet, we're hoping he can get there soon, I am going to be hitting the panic button on this entire Colts offense.
I don't know. I guess it depends on, maybe it's the panic slider for me. It's not a binary button, but it's like you start scooching it northward. I agree. I mean,
I've seen enough of Anthony Richardson in my life. I don't need to watch that anymore. And I think Riley Leonard is probably a backup, but maybe that's wrong. But we're not going to know that either way until September. So this is a much mushier conversation. But like, all right, here I am doing my draft prep for my league, and I would love to love Alec Pierce, although he himself coming off an injury, and I would love to think Josh Downs might be a sneaky whatever, high catch guy, and I'd love to say Jonathan Taylor's a early first round pick, but I'm scared. Like, how can you and I give tangible advice to what that's going to be like? Like, if he isn't practicing as of August 10th, you're okay, but on August 21st at noon, it's bad. Like, obviously it's not that scientific, but is it like it's one of those things? It's like pornography, when you see it. It's hard to give specific advice, but it is going to be something that we're watching. Like, here I am. I'm reading Colts beat reports every day. What's the point at which it gets dire?
And I think it really comes down to when you're drafting. Like, if you're drafting a fantasy football team early in training camp and Daniel Jones isn't out there and you just want to say, I'm going to pass up on all the Colts, I think that's okay. Like, if you want to say, I need to see it with my eyes, I need to see Daniel Jones out there, healthy, in pads, running, I think that's totally okay to wait until that moment. And if that is the first day of training camp, awesome. Move all the Colts up the board, draft the Colts with confidence. And if you're waiting until Labor Day, hopefully we have good answers by then. But if you're drafting in the middle of training camp and they're saying, oh, Daniel Jones, he'll be back next week, I think that you're okay just kind of waiting until you see it.
That's probably right. Like, there is a very binary factor there of, okay, if you can't even get him on the practice field at all, I have to scooch everybody down until you can get him back on the practice field. I hadn't really thought of it in those terms until you said that, but that's right. I think that's right. So, like, I'm probably not going to have 2 draft lists available at harrisfootball.com, one in which Daniel Jones has been on the practice field and one where it's not. Like, so far my ranks are assuming that eventually he'll be on the practice field. But you're right. If you're drafting before that point and you don't know for sure that point is coming forward, now that you say it that way, I absolutely agree. You have to ditch them all significantly lower. How about like a medium ground when, okay, we get the point where he is out there. I think it goes without saying he's probably not going to play any exhibition games. He's doing, drills and stuff, but they just don't hit. He's not going to have to face a pass rush. Is there a kind of a litmus test, assuming no exhibition games, that like August 20th probably is about when they break camp, and they're all yapping, they're saying, hey, is Daniel playing week 1? Well, we'll see. Is there a point where you go, okay, I can flip over to Harris's other ranks where the Colts are all in their normal spots?
Yeah, absolutely, because I would look at that as a setback, because right now at OTAs, he was going through 7-on-7s, and right now everybody in Indianapolis is saying that he's going to be ready for the start of training camp. So anytime there's a complication or a setback in an injury, that is a major red flag for me. So that's why I need
but the
to
inverse,
see it.
I asked that in a very convoluted way. I was kind of talking about the inverse, where he does get back and he's doing 7-on-7 stuff, because you're right, he already was doing 7-on-7 stuff, but he's not going to play in the exhibition games. He's not. Like, even if he's fine, he's probably not, because the exhibition games are absolutely useless and it's just an opportunity to get hurt. I don't think they're going to subject him to hits. If he plays an exhibition game, that's great. I assume you're not telling me that until he plays an exhibition game, you can't draft Jonathan Taylor ever.
Right, but if there's any sort of, like you said, if they say, like, we're hopeful that he's going to be ready for week 1, that's enough to scare me off. Like, if they're saying, hey, he's not playing in the preseason, but he will be ready week 1, that's a lot different than we hope he'll be ready for week 1.
All right. Yeah, I guess that's right. And I guess what the heck else can they say? At some point, you do have to start believing them. Could you then still get the, September 3rd blurb? Turns out, the Colts were lying, and Daniel Jones will play in October. Yeah, but you're right. I think I'm with you that if earlier in the month, lip service to like, no problem, he'll be ready week 1, I probably don't care what they say. But training camp breaks, and now they're just practicing at the team facility, and they're like still insistent. Jonathan Taylor is whatever you had him before, the RB4, 5, 3, whatever it was, he probably has to be, right?
Right. Absolutely. And even that, like, we're expecting Daniel Jones to come back at some point. So, like, even if, we talked about the splits where he was like a borderline RB3 last year without Daniel Jones, I'm never moving him that far down my rankings. Like, at worst, if we get some bad news about a setback for Daniel Jones, I'm probably moving Jonathan Taylor into the middle of the second round. Like, I'm not letting him fall any lower than that.
All right. I mean, that's good to hear. I haven't thought about it. Those alternate Colts ranks that I'm supposed to do based on this conversation, I haven't thought about what I would do with them. Yeah, that's, cool. Now you're Devon Achane. You know what I mean? Like, now you're on an awful team, but you get all the carries, and it's that is its own challenge, no question, and it's not great. But yeah, I can't see. You're not RB 30. You're RB 13 or whatever. 11, 12. Maybe something like that. Well, I mean, just to square the circle, then the receivers' fates are much more tied to the quarterback. What happens to wherever you have, it's a dumb way to say it, but like, how many rounds does Alec Pierce drop if we get this bad news about Daniel Jones? How many rounds does Josh Downs drop? I don't want you to have to quantify exactly how many, but are they taken out of the realm of the fantasy starter?
I would say that if we get a Daniel Jones setback and they say, hey, he's not going to be ready for week 1, we hope he can return at some point this season. My internal alarms are going off. I am just A-okay saying that I will let one of my 11 league mates touch Alec Pierce. Like, I'm just not going to draft him at all. I'm not going to draft Josh Downs at all. If they say that it's a week or two and he's coming back, like, it really comes down to the vibes, and it's really hard to quantify the vibes. But like, if we see a setback, then that does make me panic. But if he just keeps trending in the right direction and it looks like he's ready for week 1, I'll keep drafting these guys. But if there's any sort of concern that, like, and I think the only way that he'd miss the full season would be if he like re-ruptures his Achilles, which, I mean, then we're having a completely different conversation. But if we're looking at like multiple setbacks or the complications, he can't get up to 100%, he's not running the way that we had hoped to, then I'm probably just out on this passing attack. I don't want Alec Pierce, I don't want Tyler Warren, and I probably don't want Josh Downs either even if he's the cheapest of the bunch.
We are sponsored again this season by Viore, makers of my favorite clothing on the planet. There's no joke. Anybody who hangs out with me in LA, they all know it. At any given time, I've got something Viore on my body. Yesterday, it was the Fleet Jogger. Was hanging out in the coffee shop in those. Tuesday night, it was the Core Jogger. Played softball in those. This very moment, I'm wearing the Banks shorts and a Stratotech tee. Viore clothing, so comfortable, so soft. I move great in them. I always wear Viore at the gym, just hanging out on the couch reading. And Viore's story is also about conservation. They use recycled materials in their clothes. They're committed to supporting clean ocean initiatives. They offset like part of their power grid. Obviously, none of that would matter if the clothes weren't great, but I'm a walking billboard. Trust me, the clothes are great. If you get one pair of joggers for yourself or for the wife, just like try it one out. You will be a total convert. It's VUORI.com/Harris. Use the /Harris. You get 20% off your first purchase. Give them a try. 20% off. Viore.com/Harris. We are back with Dave, and we have one more team in the AFC South to talk about. And actually, right before the break, you said it best, which is what, in my saying a million words to try to describe what I'm talking about, a lot of times it kind of is vibes. It's really hard to sit here in early second week of July and be like, tell me exactly what you need to hear. Like, a lot of it does come out in all these training camps, a lot of it, and vibes are very subjective things, and the vibes that you receive from certain news might be different from the vibes that I receive. But you were right, David. It does kind of come down to vibes.
Yeah, and that's tough because you can't quantify it whatsoever.
Right.
But it's, I think what you said, like, you know it when you see it. It's kind of the same thing with vibes. Like, you start getting this icky feeling where, a guy doesn't look like he's 100%, and all the beat is, we're hoping for the best, and the coaches are saying, hopefully he'll be back at some time. It's that when you start hearing coaches and the beat talking about hope, that's not what I want to hear. What we want to hear is like black and white. This is when this player is going to be back.
Right. And not only, like, absence of a negative is always harder to evaluate than an obvious negative. Like, guys who pull hamstrings and are still not on the field, like those, we know how to deal with those. It's that middle ground that's hard. Let's talk about the Titans, an up and coming franchise. I'm going to be charitable and say they feel like they have their quarterback of the future. Maybe they do. And they took their receiver of the future high on draft day this past year. They have so many people at wide receiver, though. I would love, Matt Waldman, your colleague, my friend, your friend, loves Carnell Tate, comped him to Justin Jefferson. I'm so interested. I want to be on Carnell Tate, and I'm sure the market does too, and will, and probably good news about him in training camp will only make his ADP get higher. But because everybody decides what teams are definitely good and what teams are definitely bad, there probably is a limit to how high Carnell Tate can go. And I think if he has just a neutral training camp in which the stories are just about how, yes, he's a starter and you don't need to worry about that, I might be okay with the idea of reaching for him, because I don't think that price is ever going to get so bad that if he flops, it ruins your season.
Right. And I think that now, too, when you look at ADP this year, I think that because the last couple of rookie classes have been a little bit disappointing, that you probably could get a better discount on a player like Carnell Tate than you could have after Jamar Chase and after Justin Jefferson. And I don't want to go off on that whole tangent, but I think this could be one of the years where we go back to drafting rookies again, because you aren't drafting them at the end of the first round like we had to with Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, we should be able to get a deal here. So I've actually kind of drawn a line in my rankings with Carnell Tate, saying that I will draft him until he gets into round 4. Like, I will chase that helium up the board a little bit, because I think he is a good player. I think he's a talented player, but I want to draw a line for myself and say, okay, once he gets into round 4, then I'm done. And I think that he'll probably stay outside of that, but I don't think that there's anything that they can see. And I want to say, I like the Titans beat a lot. I think that they have some really good reporters who do some really good work, but I don't care. There's no amount of raving. They could say that this guy looks like the next Randy Moss out there. There's nothing I can do that will get me to draft him inside of round 4.
Yeah, I've done blended ranks for the Almanac. They're not on the website yet, but they'll be up by the end of the month, because then the Almanac will be out and everything like that. And I have, in a standard league, I have Tate 60 overall. In a full PPR, I have him 57 overall. We're talking the same language. We're basically saying 5th round. I'm just not going to get mad at somebody taking a shot there, because this is not the equivalent of spending the 15 overall pick on Marvin Harrison. You can't hurt yourself. We blow 5th round picks all the time. I fart them out my... we screw up probably more 5th round picks than we get, because it's just hard at that point. There aren't any guarantees. So if you screw up on Tate, you're not that mad. And of course, a player like it becomes a bummer, because it sounds like you want to be pretty hopeful on him too, and I would like to be hopeful on him. And unfortunately, we go into training camp, and the only thing we can do is take bad news and lower him, and not take good news and raise him. And it just feels like you're being such a downer, and yet history just tells us, right, that has to be the way that we play it.
Yeah, and I think the problem, like, the ceiling for Carnell Tate is immense. We're looking at a guy who's drafted 4th overall, and he's got the production profile and the athleticism, like all of the things that we want. But I think that you kind of nailed it when you said, like, you almost want no good news, because then all that's going to do is inflate his cost to above where it should be. And the problem is, with these young rookies that have the draft capital, like, the team is incentivized to hype these guys up. Like, every time Carnell Tate makes a contested catch, you're going to see it on Twitter, because the Titans Twitter account is going to share that video clip, and the beat is going to get super excited about it. So I think the best case scenario, as wild as it sounds, is that he kind of has a quiet camp, and that you can get him at a discounted cost.
Yeah, quiet camp would be good. And probably even where we're talking about is not so much a discount, it's just rational.
Right.
And you're hoping to stem the irrationality. You're trying to get away from
And I think what it is, and that's why I
irrationality.
started by talking about Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and I said I don't want to go off on that tangent, but I think that we have, over the last couple of years, gotten way over our skis with these rookies, because, when you drafted Justin Jefferson in round 6, and he had the rookie season he did, he won you your league. And when you got Jamar Chase in round 6, he won you your league, but then everybody started saying, okay, well, Malik Neighbors and Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison Jr., we have to draft these guys in round 2, because look at what they can do. So I think now, where we expect them to kind of fall into round 5, round 6, hopefully, I think that's just the market regulating back to where it always should have been. We just kind of got rookie drunk over the last few years.
Fully agree. And obviously the lead running back has been a much worse example of that, where they're having to take him like with the 6th pick or something. And obviously we've all dined out on that horrible trend. Yeah, like last year, the receivers went high in the NFL draft, but didn't go high in fantasy. Tate McMillan was a very reasonable pick. And, so was Matthew Golden, and the Packers were very glowing. I remember the GM talking about Matthew Golden. He's never had a bad day. He's stacking days. Every day he does something new that's amazing. You couldn't have, based on their clips in August last year between Tedero McMillan and Matthew Golden, there's no way you could have ever guessed which one was going to be awesome for fantasy and which one was going to suck, because they both got nothing but puff pieces.
And that's why I wish I had done the NFC North with you last year, Chris, because I did not think Matthew Golden was a good receiver. I thought that they reached for him in the draft. I didn't think he was a good player, but it just got to be so much, like you said, the GM, the coaches, everybody was talking about how amazing he looked, that I begrudgingly moved him up my rankings and drafted him in a handful of leagues. And I wish I had just stuck to my pre-training camp idea that he wasn't that good. Yeah,
I mean, he was the wide receiver 40 last year. So even though you're beating yourself up because it would have been like a good, quote unquote, good call, nobody lost their fantasy league because they took Matthew Golden in the, whatever that is, the 8th round, 9th round. It's like, it was the opportunity cost of not getting, I don't know who, Emeka Buka, would have been better, at least for a couple months there, to have Emeka Buka, no question. But like 2 receivers after Matthew Golden was Cooper Kupp. So my point would be, don't beat yourself up too much about that one, because to your larger point, which is that the receiver market for rookies has just gotten a lot more rational, and people aren't out there chasing like too big to fail type picks with rookie receivers anymore, which is why if someone, we talked about Jordan Tyson with Jim on Tuesday, and I'm like, I'm scared to death. I don't know anything about the kid. I don't watch college football. All I know is he's been hurt his entire career. But by the same token, as long as everything is like fine and he doesn't get hurt, I'm not going to get mad at somebody for saying, you know what? Instead of taking Jakobi Meyers, I'm going to take Jordan Tyson. Like, it could work out fine, and you're not going to ruin your draft.
Right. It's when you get into the should I take A.J. Brown or Jordan Tyson that we've lost the plot.
Right. All right, so then the last part I wanted to ask you about is the Titans backfield. And when we've done, whoever, I don't remember who, but whoever's done this division with me in July for each of the past few years, we've been trying to give away Tony Pollard's job like crazy. And I guess all I really know is that the old coaching administration, we're not interested in that. I think Tyjae Spears looks like a fun little player on film. I appear to be the only one. Brian Callahan did not agree with that assessment. But it is a new group of coaches. And they also drafted Nicholas Singleton. And so, I think Tony Pollard is, cromulent, they would say. I think he's a good starting quality type player. It's very funny to me that there were people talking about him as a first-round pick that last year in Dallas, because he's not that good, but he's obviously affordable. Is there anything that you could see, can August change the way you're currently perceiving those guys?
Absolutely, and it's not so much anything that we're going to hear about Tony Pollard or Tyjae Spears, but it's Nick Singleton's health, because I think Nick Singleton is a very, very good running back, but he suffered a broken foot in the spring. So I think that can really change how we expect this backfield to look, because if it is anything without Nick Singleton, like if he's still struggling to get back, he misses training camp. I'm kind of at the point, if a rookie can't perform in training camp, I don't even factor them into the regular season. It is so hard for a rookie to miss training camp and then hop on a moving train in the middle of the season and find a path to production. So if Nick Singleton is a non-factor in training camp, then I think we just look at this backfield the same way that we have for the last couple of years. Tony Pollard gets his work. Tyjae Spears gets some change of pace work. He can be the handcuff if Tony Pollard doesn't miss any time. But if we get reports that Nick Singleton healed faster than expected and his foot is healthy and he's ready to go, then we're looking at a 3-headed committee, and that's a lot harder to get a read on. So that's really what I'm going to be paying attention to, is Nick Singleton. If he's healthy to start training camp, then I'm moving Tony Pollard down and I'm moving Tyjae Spears down. And I don't even know if I want to draft Nick Singleton, but just knowing that there is a young, healthy back in this backfield, it just kind of murks the whole thing up enough that I'd be willing to avoid it entirely.
Okay, that was going to be my question. It's less about oh boy, I'm super excited. This Singleton kid is definitely going to take over the backfield. It's more about, I just don't want the apple to be carved that many ways. And I just kind of want to, instead of relying on Tony Pollard to be my flex, I'm going to go get some receiver or whoever, I'm going to not worry so much about it. Any possible, let me ask you first I'll ask you a little other Singleton question, and then I'll ask you a Spears question. Again, please understand that this is not me questioning your beliefs on Nicholas Singleton, because I've never heard of the man until 3 months ago. So all I know is what I've read and what Matt has told me. And it's that, he was supposed to be the next guy at Penn State. He was Saquon. He had a good rookie year, freshman year. And then Carnell and basically took that job away from him. And there began to grow, and obviously Singleton went from being like a first half of the first round type prospect to much, much later where he wound up going. There began to become a suspicion that he's a better athlete than he is a running back. Mm-hmm. Do you share that? This is not about training camp, just sort of I'm interested in what you know about him. I'm not calling you like the savant when it comes to college players, but just interested in your perspective on him.
Well, I did 58 rookie running back scouting reports. That's what I do. We seek and destroy with all of the incoming rookie class, and I do cover the running backs here for our rookie guide. So I did prefer Carnell to Nick Singleton because of what happened last year. Drew Aller got hurt, and then they started loading the box. Carnell saw more work, and he was better with that work, more efficient than he had ever been before. And I think Nick Singleton, the kind of word out of Penn State was that it was a mental thing. That once Drew Aller went down, he just kind of said, hey, my career's over at this point. I'm getting ready for the NFL. And he just kind of checked out mentally is kind of what they're saying at Penn State. So he is a very, very good athlete. He was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school. So I think the ceiling is there, but that is absolutely him kind of throwing in the towel last season is what caused him to fall down to day 3.
Mm. And that said, but still, it probably depends on, it's another vibes thing, probably. I'm going to start saying that more because you're 100% right. I beat around the bush and I talk and I talk and I talk. And in the end, what I'm trying to say is it's a vibes thing. Thank you for that. It does become Singleton in Titans camp becomes something of he needs to be healthy. And then it just needs to be kind of a vibey, oh, this kid's mixing in a lot. The second week of this, it kind of does start to have to make you look cross-eyed a little bit at Tony Pollard. That's interesting. And the last thing sorry, go ahead.
And I think the reason that if he is heavily involved in training camp, I think, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves here. We're making a lot of assumptions to get to this point, but it is a new regime, and Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears are both on expiring contracts. So I think that if Singleton's healthy, they might want to get a look and see what he can do with a bigger role late in the year. Which, if that does happen, that's the worst possible scenario for Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears drafters.
Right. Actually, along those same lines, I was going to wrap up with a Spears question, which is that Tyjae Spears is small, and he has very much been pigeonholed into what we think of traditionally as the very fast, very quick, but pretty small running back. Sorry, man, you're a satellite back. You're playing on third downs. You're Kenny Gainwell. That's just what you're always going to be. And there's been this new generation being 3 years of smaller running backs who people are starting to go, actually Devon Achane can handle it. Actually, maybe Bucky Irving can handle it. Actually, we have dreams that, insert small running back, Keaton Mitchell can handle it. I've always thought, Spears had a moment with Derrick Henry where it was if Henry goes away, could Spears maybe be your feature guy? Would you be at all, this is a long question for me to get to a simple question, all receptive to the idea that Brian Daboll's new there and everyone starts with a clean slate, and maybe if there's some hype around Spears, that could get interesting?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I am with you that I think Tyjae Spears is a very, very talented player. He's just got that jitterbug movement style. He is just fun to watch when he's got the ball in his hand, blazing quick. The issue is, and I'm sure you know this, Chris, but he's got no ACLs. He tore his ACLs multiple times in college, and that's why he fell in the NFL draft. He has a lengthy collegiate knee injury history, so I think that they purposely kind of limit his role because of that knee injury history. Now, in the last year of the deal, they probably don't care. And it's a new coaching staff. They probably don't care. Like, they aren't thinking about what Tyjae Spears is going to be doing for him 3-4 years from now. So we could see some extended work. So Tony Pollard, he's the KG veteran that has held on to this job for the last couple of years. But I think every time there's a new coaching staff, you do kind of have to step back and wonder how that depth chart is going to get shuffled around. And if we're getting a lot of, hey, Tyjae Spears, Brian Daboll wants to trust him with a big workload. He's healthy right now. He prefers him to Tony Pollard. He's getting reps with the ones. I don't think it's all that crazy to think that a new coaching staff could look at the two and say Tyjae Spears is the better back between these guys.
Yeah. Well, I would be interested. Probably, I would be a sucker for that kind of news. That vibe shift. I am the audience for that vibe shift. I'll be camped out on Titans beat reporters' web pages waiting for people to say that, because, again, though, I think that implies that I hate Tony Pollard. I've always just been, I don't know if you can identify with this. I've always been kind of just right in the middle on Tony Pollard. When everybody hated him, I was like, I'll draft him in the 7th round if you're going to let him fall there. And then when everybody loved him, I'm like, I'm not taking him in the 3rd round. What are you doing? So like, it's not like I'm saying he's bad.
And I don't think I think when I said KG veteran, that's exactly how I feel about him. Like, I think that's what he is. Like, he is a serviceable NFL running back, but I really think so much of the limited workload that we've seen from Tyjae Spears is just due to the history, because we did see in year 2 for a short period of time, like, they bumped up his touches a little bit. Like, he had a game where it looked like he was starting to run away. It was like week 3 or 4, he saw near 20 touches. And then he got hurt the next week. And then he came back and he got hurt again. And he got hurt 3 times in that second year. So I think that a lot of that, and that was all the same coaching staff. But I think that the multiple injuries that he sustained in year 2, after already having that injury red flag coming into the league, I think that just kind of scared off the coaching staff. And they never wanted to give him more than 6 to 8 touches a game, because last time they did, he just kept getting hurt.
Yeah, you want to turn into the Saving Private Ryan aging meme? Tony Pollard just turned 29. What?
Yeah.
How is that possible? He just came out of college like 6 months ago, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. How quickly, like, Jeff Bell and I talk about this all the time. It's kind of like an ongoing joke that we make on our show, but, like the fantasy drafters, the community industry, whatever you want to call it, like, they get so blinded by youth, and they're saying, like, Ramondre Stevenson needs to take the job from Damian Harris. He's the young back. He's the good back. And then as soon as Ramondre Stevenson gets that job, then Travion Henderson needs to take the job from Ramondre. He's this old dusty running back. And the same thing happened with Tony Pollard. He's the guy that was supposed to steal the job from Zeke Elliott, and then as soon as he does, then he goes to Tennessee, gets his big contract, and everyone goes, Tyjae Spears needs to take the job from that old dusty Tony Pollard.
All right. Well, you're the best. I appreciate you doing this. And now I'm going to try to be a little less loquacious when I come to describing what I'm trying to do, and just talk about vibes more, because you're 100% right that a lot of the times what I'm talking about is vibes. In fact, what a pleasure to get you on, and your insights are, of course, amazing. You can find Dave all over social media. Find him on Twitter, find him on Blue Sky, wherever you are, he is. And of course, look him up at footballguys.com. He's on a lot of different shows for the Football Guys and producing a ton of great work. What a pleasure to have you, Dave. I'll ask you back on in August. Thank you so much.
And I will accept that invitation when I get it. Always a pleasure, Chris.
And thank you so much for listening. Let me also thank the 3 wonderful sponsors, long-time sponsors that made today's show possible. We had AG1, Z-Biotics, and Viore. Now, these are different products, but they've all been with us for, I'm going to say like 4 years, 5 years, maybe more. You can find out information if you were interested in anything I said about them. Their links and stuff and codes are all in today's show notes. All of the current sponsors are listed at harrisfootball.com. We're about to have some new sponsors come on later in July and in August. Very much looking forward to that. You know how this goes. If you don't currently have the means to just, pick a sponsor and support, I totally understand. I'm so lucky and happy to have you listening. If you do have the means and anything's interesting, it really does help when you use the codes. That's how this whole thing keeps going. I appreciate how much ownership you do take of the show. That's going to do it for this Friday episode. We'll be back on Tuesday. We're going to do another division. Which division have I decided yet? No, I have not. I'm not really planning more than one day of my life ahead at a time, except to say, of course, I have
I have, in fact, lined up a guest. Do I remember who it is? I do remember. It is Jake Seeley. I had to think about it, though. I had to think about it. I haven't told Jake even which division we're doing yet, but we're going to do more training camp preview stuff. I hope this is useful. I think it is. For me, it really is crystallizing like the stuff that you want to pay attention to, and especially crystallizing the stuff you don't want to get carried away by. That's my goal for July, so that when we get to August, we don't get overwhelmed and start changing our hard-won opinions. You can, of course, go pre-order the Almanac if you so choose, and also drop me a note if you just have a sports show you like and you think it would be fun or cool if I was on that show. Drop me a note, because I don't really know a lot of shows and I need to promote, so it would be helping me out a lot. Hey Harris at harrisfootball.com. For the Yacht Clubbers, we'll be back on Monday. We're doing a Yacht Club book club for part of the show, and the rest of the time, Andy and I will have fun talking about other stuff. Everybody else, I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Until then, thanks again so much for listening. Your hat is awesome. You're awesome for wearing it. I will talk to you next time.
The Harris Football Podcast's opening theme is Under the Gun by Apex Manor. The closing theme is Say Yes by The Wellspring. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and never miss an episode.